However, I'm going to have to use the aid of the guards or my pretend gavel, since I didn't bring one, to keep us on track. Let me start with Charlie Abbott, if I can. Charlie, back in 1958, the population in Orange County was 263,500, and there were no theme parks. Today, there's over 1.1 million residents, and Lord knows how many tourists. Can you contrast, for those in attendance, what the practice of law is like today compared to what it was like when you first started? There's just a short time frame to do that in, too.
I never felt quite as old as I do now after hearing the price of gas, milk, and things like that. I can't even recall those kind of prices. John talks about the town of Orlando back in those days. I think it's fair to say that when I got out of service, I traveled around the state looking for a job, but also looking for a place to settle down. And I chose Orlando primarily because it was this small, quiet town sitting down here by itself, you know, no rush, no big highways, very quiet, very genteel. You'd see people on the corners at lunchtime standing and talking, had lakes all over the downtown. And I thought this would be just a nice, quiet little town to get a job in if I could. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to get one. And since he's mentioning prices of things, I'll share with you the fact that McGuire, Voorhees, and Wells started me off at the bounteous sum of $225 a month. Had I not saved some money while I was in the Air Force, I don't think I would have survived. Now, and back to the contrast, there were only about 300 lawyers in Orange County when I came here. And so within a few months, you knew every single lawyer in the county. Even the older gentlemen who were retired would come to the evening bar meetings. So you really got to know everybody. And it was a wonderful bar then, and still is over the years. But it was just a lot of good lawyers, good judges, only 2 circuit judges. 2 courtrooms for the 2 circuit judges, a courtroom for the criminal court of record judge, and I guess the small claims judge had a small courtroom upstairs somewhere. But that was pretty much the background on the court system. One great change that I never can forget about, I told a group of young lawyers, trial lawyers here a few years ago about this, and they sat there in total amazement, and I think they thought I was putting them on. Back in those days, we had 2 terms of court, the spring term and the fall term. And the opening day of the term of court was some magical day by statute, like the first Monday after the second Tuesday or something in the month of, was it March or Leon? Was it March or April? I don't remember. Anyway,
this is your story.
All the lawyers in town who had a case on the trial docket showed up in the courtroom over there. The judges were there. The chief, the clerk of court was there in person. The high sheriff, Dave Starr, was there. And they'd go down the docket and call each case that had been scheduled for trial during that term and pick a date for it. And from my own experience of being there, they'd say, well, how about this ABC case? Mr. Abbott, how would July be? Say, oh, Judge, sorry, Mr. Voorhees plans to try this case, and he's off in July. You know, oh, yes, I remember Harry's gone. So July was out, and they'd set it in September. And you had a date certain from that point on for your case, and you knew when you'd go to trial, and you knew everybody that was going to be there. And that's a great deal different from what I remember of the last 20-so years of my practice with, you know, being the 4th case on Monday and 3rd case on the next docket the following Monday, and never knowing when you might start anything. But let me leave it at that and let some of the others comment on what they remember.
The fact is, Charlie says he can't remember those prices. He can't remember anything else either. I went to work at McGuire, Voorhees, and Wells in 1951 for $150 a month. Harry Voorhees said to me, now your salary is a matter of confidence. I don't want you going around town talking about it. And I allegedly said, "Don't you worry, I'm just as ashamed of it as you are."
Russell, let me turn to you for just a minute. I don't need to call the deputies yet. Same question, dealing with the practice of law. Can you contrast what was and what is, not necessarily better, but different?
Well, before I begin my monologue on this subject, let me just assure everybody here that the reason why Leon Hanley's included on this august list is because they wanted to raise his self-esteem. Well, now, by the way, I felt very honored myself from the day I got the notice on this thing until I saw who else was on there being honored. In fact, Leon was very much in the middle of things when I got here on October the 6th, 1958. He was the insurance defense lawyer in Orange County. He was big. I mean, he was very big, and he kept on getting bigger. And I'm surprised he hasn't applied for statehood. He'll get even with me in a minute, I'll assure you of that. Yeah.
You can now see why I'm standing between the two of them.
Now, also, before I answer his question, I want to clear up another thing. Everything that's written about me, it seems like that it's included in there about my father being a physician in the coal fields of West Virginia. It says in there that my mother claims that he conceived me, he delivered me, and he circumcised me. It's in there. And that's when I decided to specialize in medical malpractice.
Thank you for sharing.
I knew it was coming. All right. Now, you want to know how it was when I got here in October 6, 58. It's not a cozy, homespun story that you've heard thus far. This was a southern town on October 6, 1958, a very southern town. And after having returned from being sworn in by the Florida bar in Tallahassee, I decided to take a little walk around town. By the way, I started with Ackerman, Turnbull, Centerfit, and Idson. And they were always extremely generous about allowing me to do other things other than keep timesheets going. So I decided to walk through the Orange County Courthouse and take a look at the things. And then a gentleman walked out of one of the courtrooms, and he had been a senior when I was a freshman in law school. And he said, "Russell, how would you like to come in and meet Judge Murphy?" And I thought that was a rather hospitable comment for him to suggest. And I said, "Well, yeah, I'd like to meet Judge Murphy." So we went into the courtroom to meet Judge Murphy, and then he announced to the court, "Your Honor, I've just found counsel for the defendant." And I said, "Your Honor, I want to tell you right now, I've never tried a case, and matter of fact, I've never even seen a trial, much less do the case." Well, the gentleman, and then Judge Murphy, in a very thick Southern accent that it would cut the butter with it, he says, "Well, you just do fine." And I didn't do fine. I proceeded to get my guy convicted before you can say Jack Robinson. He was charged with withholding support from his wife. Now, this is different from not supporting his wife. It means he had the means but withheld it. And it carried a 6-month penalty. He already served 4 months for waiting for the trial, waiting for the case to be called. So at the time, during the trial itself, they made sport of me and my client. His wife had to testify, and she was asked, "Is your husband in the courtroom?" And she said, "Yes, he is." "Point him out." She pointed over there with my client and I were seated. Well, now he was African American. And then the next question was, "Which one?"